Hey, Jason here from Simply Swider. If your Lasko heater just died completely, no lights, no heat, nothing, I've got great news. Most of these dead heaters aren't actually broken. In fact, I'll show you 5 specific fixes that work 90% of the time. And we'll start with the ones that cost you absolutely nothing. Before we get started, if you run into any questions, jump into our Facebook group. Links in the description. We've got thousands of people helping each other fix their appliances, and I pop in there daily to help out. Here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. These Lasko heaters have built-in safety systems that can make the unit appear completely dead when they're really just protecting you from a fire hazard. The heater detects something wrong, like overheating or getting tipped over, and it basically puts itself into lockdown mode. Here's what I actually see when I get these service calls. 4 out of 10 times, it's just a safety lockout that needs a proper reset. That's a free fix. 3 out of 10 times, it's dust buildup causing overheating, also free to fix. 2 out of 10 times, you're looking at a blown thermal fuse. That's a $10 part. The rest are power cord or capacitor issues. Think in layers here. Safety systems first, then airflow, then actual component failure. We're going to diagnose in probability order, not just start throwing parts at it. So the number one culprit when your Lasko heater appears dead is what I call a soft lockout. Here's what happens. The heater's internal safety system detects something it doesn't like. Could be overheating, could be the unit got bumped while it was running, could even be a power surge, and it shuts everything down to protect you. But here's the kicker, it stays locked out until you do a proper reset. I had this customer last month call me in a panic because her tower heater just died in the middle of winter. She'd unplugged it for a few seconds, plugged it back in, nothing. Turns out these things need way longer than that to reset. The capacitors inside need time to fully discharge. Here's the exact reset procedure. First, unplug the heater completely. Now, set a timer for 15 minutes. This isn't optional. The internal capacitors need this full time to discharge. While you're waiting, find a different outlet to test with. After 15 minutes, plug it into that different outlet and try turning it on. If it fires right up, you just saved yourself a $100 service call. The unit's fine, it was just being protective. Another common cause is dust and debris blocking the airflow. These heaters are basically high-powered hair dryers, and just like your bathroom hair dryer, they suck in everything. Dust, pet hair, lint, you name it. The rear intake grill on these tower models acts like an unintentional filter, and when it gets clogged, the heater overheats and shuts down. I remember this guy who called me about his heater running for maybe 5 minutes, then clicking off. He was convinced the thermostat was shot. I get over there, flip the unit around, and the back looked like it was wearing a gray sweater, completely matted with dust. Here's your test. Grab a flashlight and look at the rear vents. If you see a carpet of lint in there, that's your problem. Clean it out with compressed air or a vacuum with a brush attachment. You can see right here how much junk comes out of these things. The heater cycles on, briefly overheats because it can't breathe. Then the safety system kicks in and shuts it down. Clean the intake and you're back in business. If the reset didn't work and the vents are clean, you're probably looking at a blown thermal fuse. This is a little sacrificial component buried in the wiring that's designed to literally melt and cut the power if the heater gets too hot. It's like a circuit breaker, except it's one-time use only. When it blows, the heater is completely dead. No lights, no nothing. Here's the thing. This usually happens because someone ignored problem number 2 for too long. The heater kept overheating, kept trying to protect itself, and finally the thermal fuse said enough and sacrificed itself to prevent a fire. Before we continue, safety first. Unplug the unit and let it cool completely. You'll need a basic multimeter for this test. They're about $20 at any hardware store. Look for the thermal fuse in a white heat-resistant sleeve somewhere in the wire harness. Set your multimeter to continuity mode. Touch the probes to both ends of the fuse. If you hear no beep or see all on the display, the fuse is blown. Now here's where most people mess up. They replace the fuse without cleaning out all that dust first. Guess what happens? New fuse blows immediately. Clean first, then replace the fuse. You're looking at maybe $2 to $10 for the part, but you'll need to know how to solder. Power cord problems are less common, but they're dangerous when they happen. These heaters pull 5 amps, which creates heat at connection points. If you've got a loose outlet that's not gripping the plug tightly, you get arcing and melting. I had this lady whose plug was literally melted to the wall outlet. The heater wasn't the problem. The outlet was worn out. Check your plug for any discoloration, melting, or burn marks. If the plug looks damaged, don't mess around. That's a fire hazard. Here's a critical safety point. Never ever run these heaters on extension cords. These units pull 1500 watts. That's like running a hairdryer constantly. Extension cords cause voltage drop, which creates heat, and I've literally seen melted cords start house fires. If your outlet won't hold the plug snugly, or if you see any burn marks around the outlet, stop using it immediately and call an electrician. The least common issue is capacitor failure on the control board. This mainly hits certain digital models like the 5588 series. What happens is a capacitor on the power supply section fails and the logic circuit can't power up. You'll hear the unit make clicking sounds when you plug it in, but it won't actually turn on. Sometimes you'll get heat while the unit is supposedly off. The dead giveaway is if you open it up and see a capacitor that's bulging or looks puffy. That's a failed capacitor. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've replaced more of these than I care to admit. It's usually a big yellow film capacitor or an electrolytic capacitor. The part costs maybe $5 to $10, but you need to be comfortable desoldering and soldering PCB components. Most people think the whole control board is fried, but it's usually just that one capacitor. The thermal fuse is your most likely replacement part. It's a small cylindrical component that's designed to fail when the heater overheats. You'll find it buried in the wire harness or near the heating element. The challenge isn't the part cost, we're talking $2 to $10, it's the access. You usually need to tear the whole unit down to get to it. And here's the critical part. You cannot bypass this fuse. I've seen people just solder a wire across where the fuse was, and that's removing the fire safety protection. Don't do it. Replace it with the correct amperage and temperature rating, and make sure you've cleaned out all the dust that caused it to blow in the first place. The tip-over switch is a safety component that cuts power if the unit isn't upright. Most are plunger-style switches that can get mechanically stuck or the internal contacts can fail. If your heater shuts off when you move it or won't turn on unless you jiggle it, this is likely your culprit. You can test it by manually depressing the plunger and checking for continuity. The part runs about $5 to $10. Some units use a weight-based mechanism that you'll hear rattle when you shake the unit. Either way, it's a safety component, so don't disable it. On digital models, the power supply capacitor steps down the high voltage AC to low voltage DC for the control board. When it fails, you get that clicking sound but no startup. Visual inspection usually tells the story. If the capacitor looks bulged or puffy, it's bad. You can also test the capacitance with a meter. These are usually 470 microfarad capacitors, and they run about $5 to $10. The repair requires PCB soldering skills, but it beats replacing the entire control board. The thermistor is the temperature sensor that tells the heater what the room temperature is. When it fails, you'll typically see a blinking 88 error code or the unit will shut off immediately after starting. It's basically a resistor that changes value based on temperature. You can test it by measuring resistance while applying heat or cold to the sensor. The part costs about $6, but again, you'll need soldering skills to replace it. All right, if you're dealing with actual component failures, let's talk about what you're looking at cost-wise and difficulty-wise. Here's the reality. Professional repair on these heaters doesn't make economic sense. A bench fee alone is $50 to $100, and you can buy a new heater for $40 to $80. But if you're handy with a soldering iron, most of these fixes are pretty straightforward. The key is diagnosing correctly so you're not throwing parts at the problem. Now you can see right there on the screen the most common Lasko models that have these issues. The 755320 and 751320 tower models are notorious for the safety lockout problem. They really need that full 15-minute reset. The CT series has thermistor issues, and the 5588 digital model has that capacitor problem I mentioned. If you spot your model up there, you're definitely not alone with these problems. Here's your action plan. Start with the 15-minute reset. Unplug it, wait the full 15 minutes, try a different outlet. If that doesn't work, clean those rear vents thoroughly with compressed air. These two free fixes solve about 70% of dead heater problems. Only move to part replacement if both of these fail to get your heater running. If you need to replace parts, stick to the thermal fuse or capacitor unless you're really comfortable with electronics work. And remember, never bypass safety components, always clean out the dust before replacing fuses, and don't use extension cords with these high wattage heaters. If this helped you get your heater working again, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know which fix worked for you. Really helps other people with the same problem. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll get this out to more folks who need to save some time and money. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.